The Pacific Ocean lay still on the morning of June 4, 1942. Beneath the rising sun, thousands of men aboard steel decks prepared for what none could yet name, the battle that would decide the fate of the Pacific War. The sea shimmered with calm indifference, masking the violence soon to unfold. Within 48 hours, 4 Japanese carriers, the pride of the Imperial Navy, would vanish beneath these same waves. This is the story of Midway, where intelligence, sacrifice, and chance collided to alter history's course. In the first months of 1942, Japan reigned supreme across the Pacific. From the Philippines to Singapore, her armies and fleets advanced unchecked. The United States, reeling from Pearl Harbor, was still learning how to fight a new kind of war, one waged by aircraft carriers instead of battleships. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of Pearl Harbor, sought to deliver a decisive blow to America's remaining naval power. His plan: lure the U.S. fleet into a trap near a tiny atoll called Midway, destroy their carriers, and force a peace settlement. Yamamoto believed surprise and overwhelming force would guarantee victory. But in Washington and Pearl Harbor, a silent war was already being won. By cryptanalysts, American codebreakers at Station Hypo, led by Commander Joseph Rochefort, had cracked the Japanese JN-25 naval code. Through fragments and guesses, they learned of a planned attack against a location designated AF. To confirm it, Midway was instructed to send an unencrypted message claiming their water distillation plant had broken. Hours later, Japanese intelligence reported that AF is short on water. The trap was revealed, and the Americans prepared their own. Admiral Chester W. Nimitz moved quickly. He had only 3 carriers: Enterprise, Hornet, and the hastily repaired Yorktown. Outnumbered, outgunned, but armed with foreknowledge, he placed them northeast of Midway, exactly where the Japanese least expected. At 0430 hours, 4 Japanese carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, launched their first wave of aircraft toward Midway. The roar of engines rolled across the dark Pacific. Their mission: neutralize the island's airfields and defenses. Bombs fell like rain on coral runways and fuel depots, but the island's guns answered back. The defenders of Midway, a small garrison of Marines and pilots, refused to yield. As the smoke rose from the atoll, American reconnaissance planes spotted the Japanese fleet. Messages were sent, positions marked. In the sky, squadrons of B-26 Marauders and TBF Avengers launched desperate torpedo attacks. Few returned. The sea swallowed men and machines alike, but they forced the Japanese to delay, to rearm and refuel at the worst possible time. Admiral Chuichi Nagumo, commander of the Japanese carrier force, hesitated. Should he strike Midway again, or prepare for the American carriers? His indecision proved fatal. As deck crews shifted torpedoes and bombs, Japanese carriers sat exposed, flight decks cluttered with fuel hoses and live ordnance. It was the most dangerous moment imaginable, and it was at that exact moment that American dive bombers arrived overhead. At 10:20 a.m., squadrons from Enterprise and Yorktown found their prey. Flying high above the clouds, pilots of VB-6 and VS-6, led by Lieutenant Commander Wade McCluskey, spotted a lone Japanese destroyer racing north, a clue that led them straight to the heart of the enemy formation. What they saw below was staggering. 4 Japanese carriers, flight decks alive with aircraft being rearmed and refueled. In a matter of minutes, history turned. From nearly 20,000 feet, McCluskey and his men dove. The wind screamed against their canopies as the ocean and burning decks filled their view. Bombs fell, one after another, striking with merciless precision. Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu erupted in fireballs. Aviation fuel cascaded across decks, igniting everything it touched. Men leapt into the sea, ships buckled and broke. Admiral Nagumo's flagship, Akagi, was mortally wounded. Within 6 minutes, 3 of Japan's frontline carriers were dying infernos. Only Hiryu survived. Her captain, Tamon Yamaguchi, struck back with remarkable composure. 2 waves of counterattacks were launched against the Americans. Yorktown was hit, first crippled, then abandoned. But she refused to sink easily. Later, her crew returned, fighting to save her until a submarine torpedo finally finished the job. By nightfall, Hiryu herself was found and destroyed by dive bombers from Enterprise. Flames rose into the twilight sky, marking the death of Japan's last operational carrier at Midway. As dawn broke on June 5th, the battle was over. The Imperial Japanese Navy had lost 4 of its 6 first-line carriers, ships that had spearheaded the attack on Pearl Harbor only 6 months earlier. Over 3,000 Japanese sailors and aviators were dead. The Americans lost 1 carrier, Yorktown, and about 360 men. The numbers told a deeper story. Japan's naval air arm, its most skilled pilots and deck crews, was gone, irreplaceable in wartime. The Americans, on the other hand, could rebuild, retrain, and return stronger. For the first time since Pearl Harbor, the Pacific belonged not to the rising sun, but to the United States Navy. Admiral Nimitz would later describe the outcome in simple terms. It was our cryptanalysis that made victory possible. But behind the intelligence and tactics were human beings, young men barely out of school, braving flak and fire in fragile aircraft. Pilots who never returned, deckhands who went down with their ships, and commanders who made impossible decisions in moments of chaos. Midway was a triumph of courage and calculation. Yet for every man who survived, it was also a reminder that victory carries its own sorrow. In the months that followed, the balance of power in the Pacific shifted. The United States seized the initiative, pressing toward the Solomon Islands and Guadalcanal. Japan, though still dangerous, would never again mount an offensive of that scale. Today, the wrecks of Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu, and Yorktown rest in the depths of the Pacific, silent tombs beneath thousands of feet of water. They lie preserved in darkness, their steel frames covered in coral and time. Each twisted beam and silent corridor whispers the same truth, that the tides of war turn not by fate alone, but by courage, sacrifice, and the unyielding will to fight on. Midway was not merely a battle, it was a reckoning. In 48 hours, empires shifted, legends were born, and the Pacific War found its course. And though the guns have long since fallen silent, the echoes of valor, the courage of those who fought and fell, still roll across the waves.